project that I was working on last fall was for NFL's Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. And we were basically designing, animating the opening title for Thursday Night Football, which is something I guess that hasn't really been done before, at least like we did it, which I loved. I thought it was a really, and I mean, all credit to creative director and people who were doing this before I got on the project, but I thought it was a really interesting, creative and conceptual process for it. It was something that I had never seen anything done in football. I mean, it's sort of like anime, like all kind of 2D illustrated characters, like running through kind of abstract scenes, and there's some football paraphernalia and jerseys.
Yeah, very like edgy, hard edges. And
yeah, right. It's like very graphic and illustrative, which I thought was really interesting. Usually I think football and it's like this kind of crazy, like hyper realistic 3D renders, and it's like dun dun dun, like crazy music and stuff. But this, like, the music changed every week. Like they had like Lizzo one week and like Bruce Springsteen, like all sorts of stuff. So yeah, that is a pretty exciting project, like compared to some stuff I do, but in a sense that could be a pretty kind of typical type of thing that I would do.
How many people are working on that? But, obviously you have to turn something around each week. So how many people are working behind the scenes to create what we see before the Thursday Night Football game? And they're like, what, maybe a minute long, something like that?
Yeah, about minute and a half. Yeah, quite a few people, just because of the nature of freelance, which is what a lot of studios rely on. Like that's kind of their business model, is to keep kind of a core tight-knit group of staff artists and then bulk up with freelance staff as projects, come in and out. And it works well both ways. It works well for the studio. I like being freelance. A lot of people like being freelance. So because of that, people's availability can shift. So there's always people kind of cycling in and out on a project. So like I was on the project pretty much the entire time, all the way up until the last day, Thursday, December, 29th or whatever the last Thursday Night Football game was. But some people would be on it for a week, some people 2 weeks, some people like 3 days. There's some kind of niche roles that people fill. There's like what you call a cell animator, which is sort of like traditional frame by frame animation. So we had like a few of those guys who would come on sometimes for like 2 days just to do like one shot. And that's like the kind of runner throughout the whole sequence. Those are all cell animated and then kind of composited into the whole shot. So at one time, there's probably 5, 6 kind of real workers on it doing the animation or design, and then plus a creative director and a producer.
And what exactly, I find this fascinating because, I mean, I know more about this stuff than most people, I guess, but I'm probably naive. And I think when I see something like that, like it's one person. Maybe he's like someone helps with the idea, and then there's one animator that's doing this. And maybe that's because so many of the terrific animations that we receive are created by one person over a long period of time. Right. So there's this whole team. Like, what is your job within the team? And you seem to be sort of a more consistent piece throughout the entire thing. What are you actually doing?
So yeah, on this project, on the NFL project, I was an animator, a 2D animator completely. So a lot of times projects like that are kind of broken up into phases of kind of pre-production, conceptualization, and that's usually responsibility of the creative director. Maybe there's 2 creative directors. Maybe they'll get like a staff designer to kind of help out with some stuff. But that's kind of pitching the project to the, at this point, I guess it was to Amazon. They were doing Thursday Night Football, saying, this is the style we want to go with. What do you think? Feedback, improvements. Then once you lock a style, then you move into kind of storyboarding. I mean, honestly, it's like a film in a lot of ways. You move into storyboarding and you draw out, and a lot of times there's a niche storyboard artist that they'll bring on for, a week or 2 and get out all the frames. What's the pacing of the piece going to look like? Put together some sort of animatic, maybe time with some, early music or something that you want it to feel like. Get the pacing, the rhythm, the kind of cinematography of the whole piece together. And then you move into design. So you have just designers designing out 25 frames of basically just a still of the final piece. What is it going to look like? And then that moves into animation. And that's for this one, I came in to start 2D animating. So taking all these frames. And so there's 20, 30 frames, for this piece. And so there's 4 animators or so, and you just kind of split it up, start working. And you're just constantly animating, rendering, sending to creative director, getting notes, continuing to work on that while you work on another shot. They start getting pieced together. There's usually an editor on the project that's putting everything in place. And it's just constant cycle of revisions, moving on to the next shot. And then there's 3 or 4 other people doing the same thing. And it all comes to a final place at some point.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing I'm thinking of. It's with all these different people working in all these different aspects. It has to get done. I mean, there's a game coming every week, and if it doesn't get done, there's Are you working for something like this? This is just curious. Are you working a couple weeks ahead for each one, or is it
Yeah.
Is each game different?
Each game is different. They all are completely unique. All the colors in each piece match the home team's colors that week. There's jerseys that reflect both teams' history, their star players of all time. There's kind of what we call a superstar shot, where typically it was the quarterback of each team. Sometimes it would be a star running back, or sometimes even the coach if there maybe wasn't a star player for the team. So yeah, there's a lot of unique elements to each piece, but there's also kind of one streamlined custom baseline that we created, and that was one of my big responsibilities on the project, was to create this just master toolkit for the whole piece. So aside from those shots that were unique to each week, I had this whole master toolkit with all sorts of linking and scripting all hooked up to a single layer that you could go in and change. And I had all the team's colors laid out. And so as soon as I set that up, it became pretty simple to go in, choose the colors, and then those 2 colors would update throughout the whole piece. So every instance of the home team primary color, home team secondary color, away team secondary, away team primary, those are all kind of procedurally generate throughout the whole piece. So that was a huge help. If not, it would have been just a crazy amount of work, but luckily I was able to kind of put that together.